We need to move along quickly, so let me just reintroduce Amberin Zaman from the Woodrow Wilson Center for Scholars. So much more in her biography, including Turkey correspondent for The Economist, to speak about Russia, Turkey, the US, the Caucasus, whatever else she finds important. Thank you, Amberin.
Thank you for coming here on a Sunday. It's a real honor to be here, and it feels kind of like home, being that there's so many, I think, Ottoman Armenian descendants here among us. I'm from Turkey. Salpi forgot to mention that. And I really want to thank Salpi for inviting me. She got a great introduction, of course, but I'd like to add that while I was living in Armenia with my husband, the American diplomat, who, by the way, his first ambassador was Ambassador Matlock in Moscow, so that's quite amazing to actually finally virtually meet Ambassador Matlock. Salpi was, with all due respect to Vartan Oskanyan, the secret weapon of Armenian diplomacy, she was quite amazing, and she was the go-to person, certainly for everyone at the American embassy and all the European ambassadors. And sadly, from my point of view as a journalist, she was also terribly tight-lipped. She wouldn't give anything away. So maybe tonight over dinner and some guinea, you'll loosen up finally. So when I was coming here, because it's an incredibly fraught time for us as journalists covering Turkey, because as you know, there's a referendum in exactly a week that's critical for Turkey's future, and so I've been extremely focused on that. And when, amid all these emails that I've been receiving, like many more these days, I got the invitation to speak here. I mistakenly somehow thought that I was meant to talk about Turkish-Armenian relations, and that's what I'd prepared for. But apparently, I'm supposed to talk about Russia and Turkey and how that matters from Armenia's point of view. So I'll try and kind of readjust my sort of brain, reset everything, and try and say a few things about all of that and why Turkish-Russian relations matter to Armenia. And even if I had prepared for that, I guess after what happened this week with the United States attacking the Syrian regime, Bashar Assad, for the first time, everything again has changed, because as you, for those of you who follow Turkey, you probably know that for the longest time, Turkey and Russia were at the opposite ends of this conflict in Syria. Turkey has been openly backing regime change, and in some very controversial ways, might I add, by opening its borders to Syrian rebels and not really paying much attention to who they were, because Turkey was so focused on seeing Assad overthrown, and therefore also allowing the jihadists among those rebels, and I'm referring in particular to Jabhat al-Nusra, which is very powerful still in Idlib province, and over time to those who left Jabhat al-Nusra and eventually became ISIS, so very controversial. And so Turkey has been supporting regime change at odds with Russia and Iran. And of course, you all know that in November 2015, Turkey sort of carried that to a new level and shot down a Russian jet over the Syrian-Turkish border, and obviously hadn't calculated Putin's wrath, which was just ferocious. And very quickly, Turkish President Erdogan understood that it was a horrible mistake, because very swiftly Russia set about imposing economic sanctions on Turkey. Russian tourists are like the top people, sort of tourists coming to Turkey after the Germans. Very important source of income. They stopped coming, the charter flights were stopped, Russia stopped importing Turkish produce, again, very important source of income. And at the same time, sort of carried the battle to the diplomatic level and was threatening to expose Turkey's involvement with these jihadist groups at the United Nations. This all became way too costly for Erdogan, so he did a U-turn, and by June of 2016 he had formally apologized pretty much to Putin, and then suddenly we saw this huge courtship. And so suddenly Russia and Turkey were becoming big friends again. But then Turkey realized that for all this, new sort of these new friendly ties between the two countries, they still, still some very big differences remained. And it seemed very clear that the Russians were not going to stop their support for the Kurds in Syria. Because as you know, both the United States and Russia support a Syrian Kurdish group known as the People's Protection Units, who are very closely linked to another Kurdish group known as the Kurdistan Workers' Party, which has been fighting initially for Kurdish independence in Turkey, but then they decided they would settle for autonomy, so they've been fighting for Kurdish self-rule inside Turkey since 1984, and are very closely linked to the People's Protection Units, the YPG, because the YPG was in fact founded by Abdullah Öcalan, the PKK leader who's now in jail and who lived in Syria for many, many, many years. And so both Russia and the United States are allied with these Kurds, and Russia sees the Kurds as a very useful way of continuing to pressure Turkey to completely abandon its support for these jihadists inside Syria, and in particular two groups, Jabhat al-Nusra and Ahrar al-Sham. As you know, Turkey has a very long border with Syria. It's about 800 kilometers long. And Idlib, the province where Nusra is very powerful, obviously relies on Turkey for logistic supplies. It's perfectly conceivable that even though Turkey is now officially at war with ISIS, that somehow al-Nusra does still benefit from its proximity with Turkey and Russia, especially after the St. Petersburg metro attack. Let's not forget that it was an Uzbek who carried it out, and we're hearing that a lot of Uzbeks are getting radicalized through Syria and through Jabhat al-Nusra. So it's not inconceivable that Russia would somehow not have been too unhappy about that chemical weapon attack, not foreseeing perhaps what the reaction of Donald Trump would be. And now why does this all matter to Armenia? So let's go back to 2009 when Turkey and Armenia were on the brink of peace. It was a very hopeful moment. I was there at the time, and we all know what ensued. Turkey basically is the party that stepped back from that, and the reasons are probably well known to you, so I'm not going to rehash all of that. But at the time, we were all very hopeful. Turkey was on the path to democracy, we thought, and we also thought that Armenia was on that path too. And unfortunately, as things stand today, Turkey is traveling very rapidly in the opposite direction. And what might happen as a result of now Turkey once again talking about regime change in Syria and applauding what Donald Trump did is that it will find itself again at odds with Russia in ways that could propel Russia to perhaps convey its displeasure no longer just through the Kurds, but through Azerbaijan, Armenia, the Caucasus, and pulling Turkey in ways that could be very unpredictable and very risky. And what's more, with President Trump being the way he is, very unpredictable, we just don't know where this could all lead. What, for instance, if the United States decided it would be a good idea to sort of join forces with Turkey to pressure Russia in the Caucasus? What kind of an impact would that have? These are all questions that lie before us. And it's really, to me, very, very depressing that we are here today when we could have been somewhere quite different. Because if Turkey had made peace with Armenia, and let me say this, I think that for Turkey to be truly to be a democracy, we really need to face up to our past. We need to face up to the Armenian genocide. I think if we are where we are today, it's partly because we haven't done that. And I think that until we do that, not only can we progress as a society, become a full democracy, only then can we have healthy relations also with our neighbors, with Armenia, and I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.